Okay, well, welcome to the podcast. And today we are lucky enough to have Zack Breen from the HARA. So, welcome, Zack.
Hi, Matt. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great that you are, especially as you're just back off of tour. I think final gig on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the show was on Saturday, and you say final show, and that's an interesting one because it felt almost like the sending off of the old era, if you will, and it feels like we're ushering in the new stuff that we're about to start to focus on and release and drip feed into the world after being basically dormant on the music front for about a year, over a year with the last stuff that we released.
Wow,
So
wow.
it was good. It was really good. It felt good.
So
Yeah.
it was a fun tour. You enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was really fun. We played. It was just one show in Southampton, but we were away for. I mean, this week was quite. I don't even know what it is right now. It was one of those. It was like a real short one, an intense run, but it was like peppered with things like the start of the week was we went to the Heavy Music Awards
Okay,
in London, which was great. So that was the big party, and
fantastic.
that was really fun. And yeah, just then Southampton at the end of it, which was great.
Great. I wish I'd have known in time actually, because I'm pretty close to Southampton. But
Oh, no
I'll
way.
get you
Absolutely.
next time.
Next time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a whole list of questions to ask you, and I've got to ask you first of all your live sound and versus your studio gig. I mean, your sound is absolutely massive. However do you do that on stage?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, through a lot of trial and error, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, like when the band first started, I toured with a Cornford. I still have it literally just off camera over here. A Cornford Roadhouse 30-watt amp head, which to this day I think is still one of my favorite amps of all time. The Cornfords are insane, insane. So I had my Cornford. I was armed with my Cornford, 1x12 Black Star cab, and a boost pedal and a Stratocaster, and that's it. And that kept me going through, and maybe longer than I care to admit, but I needed more. Like I needed more being the one guitarist, the only guitarist in the band, the only string player in the band. Uh, I felt like we needed more, and it was my sound tech at the time, a guy called Deck, who suggested. He said, "Have you ever thought about doing a dual rig? Just an A and B pedal?" And I thought, no, but that sounds awesome. And I started to experiment with dual rigs after that. Essentially, I got myself a Switchblade AB pedal,
Okay.
and I I hooked up the Cornford, and I bought myself a Mesa Boogie single rectifier, which is
Yeah.
just the sound, isn't it? Like the sound, and A and B those, and immediately just, I mean, two is better than one, and that gave me just like the stage sound, more for our front of house to play with, and just different tonal options, and that really spawned a obsession with trying to experiment with loads of different dual rigs. Now what I run now after 7 years of trial and error, I run the Laney Ironheart uh, head, who Laney is such an amazing company who endorse me in the band, and they're so helpful in so many different ways. But I run, yeah, a full Laney rig now. So I have my Ironheart head, and then I have a uh, Ironheart SLS, which is like a monoblock tubular. It's like a small tube, almost like a fly rig, but it's amazing. What a tone it punches, and with the whole uh, kind of focus on other companies going smaller, more digital modelers, floor
Yeah.
modelers and stuff. Laney's had a really good answer for it, and they've just built on that even more so with things like the loud pedal and the foundry
Yeah.
pedals and stuff,
Yeah.
which I have also used for fly rigs. But my main rig would be, yeah, a dual. combo of the SLS and the Ironheart head, and I found for that together, both DI and then a cab mic, it's just huge. It's a real huge sound for me for sure.
And you use that in the studio as well. That's just
Use that in the studio, yeah. With the studio sound, it's so all the new music that we've just recorded over the past year was for sure the main sound. It all came from the Ironheart, a mixture of the SLS. There was a little mango amp in the studio. I love like when you go to studios and there's just random like bits of stuff who that you're like, what is this? And it's called some freaky name that you've never heard of in the but you're like, I'm gonna use it and I'm gonna make it sound sick. So there's a couple of different just random things peppered, but the main sound for sure is still the Ironheart. And I think we used this like it was a Laney product again, but it's like a studio head that I'm not too sure of what the make specifically is, but it was this great unit that just sits on your desk. And you can basically just program whatever sound you want into it. It's like a hybrid of tubes and digital. I honestly don't know what it was, but it was very, very fun. So yeah, still Laney though, pushing the sound for
only
me.
pushing the
Yeah.
sound, right? I also must ask you, and I should know the answer to this, but I don't. You said you're the only stringed sort of player
Yeah.
in the band. How do you get the sort of bass sound, that's going on alongside with it? I mean, I guess there's some sort of octave going on, but
Yeah, good question, Shai. We again trial and error over the years. Um, we we run live stems that are Soundtech mixes live, all individual live stems, and there is there's there's running live alongside the instruments on stage. There is stuff like keys, pad sounds, synths, sub bass, real bass, extra
sure.
guitar,
Okay,
all of which any of the strings that you hear either recorded or obviously live. I've played.
okay.
I love to play. I'm the bassist of the band, but just I just don't play it live, and I enjoy that because I love to play bass as well. Um, but it is a delicate balance for sure. It is. It's getting the live and the stems just mixed right, so it
Sure.
feels natural. It sounds natural, and yet the where the frequencies of everything sits is important.
Yeah,
So one isn't over like the sub bass isn't overpowering the real bass, and the real bass sits really nicely with my guitar and
yeah,
etc etc. So it is yeah, it's a bit of like an ecosystem, but it is that we do play with stems, and we play to a click. Everything's in a session, and
right.
we've got a lot of time coding, a lot of looping, and automation and stuff, and it's a real big thing. But I found that our rig now feels like the most proficient and audibly pleasing that I've heard. One thing that we need to do going forward with all the new stuff that we've just done is just kind of do what we've done to the previous stuff and just make sure it all sits really nicely
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
live stuff because when as soon as you record something new, it's just making sure that it all sounds similar-ish, if that makes any sense,
yeah.
without the
Absolutely.
news being too loud or too clean. So that is this month's job, is to make all the new stuff
Okay. I
really
guess,
well.
I
So,
guess you must need a sort of lot of discipline in that. I guess there's no room for improv.
well, so you'd think that, but as a player who absolutely adores improvisation, and so does my drummer Jack. He loves to improv, and we both jam off each other at loads.
Okay.
Um, I love players like Guthrie Govan, Tom Quayle, Rick Graham. I love a lot of fusion players,
Uh-huh.
and I've been always enamored by their approach to improvisation. And so with the live set, I never wanted to lose that. But neither did the other guys. But I was adamant that I didn't want to lose it, and we have left room either side of the track. Sometimes we'll extend sections, um, and we'll make it. I mean, it is, of course, live, but we do want those pockets to play around. And nothing is ever played the same once either, or twice, sorry, because even in the sections that are more structured, we'll still mess with them. We'll still jam over them. And I think I like to kind of do that because it's fresh for me. It's and I just love the fact that I'm going to pick up my guitar and I know the structure and I know what I've got to play with, but we'll still find time to mess around with it, to improvise and jam. And in the elongated sections, I'll always we'll change it up. You know, we'll play
Sure.
different stuff, and we always wanted to, and we will always keep that. I'm hugely into that side of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, that sounds absolutely fascinating. Yeah. I wonder maybe if we could chat a little bit, sort of wind it back a little bit and find out a little bit about sort of, what got you into music and, what do you remember was your sort of first thing that said, I've got to be the guy with the guitar.
Yeah, of course. Um, I think a lot of it was, I think music hit me at a really good time. I just started high school and I was like just starting to form a personality, if you
Yeah,
will,
yeah.
get into stuff. And um, I met some of my friends in those years who are still my dear close friends who introduced me to bands like Avenged Sevenfold and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Dream Theater and literally it's just like System of a Down and Disturbed and a lot of kind of like early 2000 new metal, and metal in general. But then on the other side of that, I got into films and film soundtracks. Films like, I mean, a lot of the Tarantino films at the time, I remember
Okay,
I had like a Pulp Fiction soundtrack CD and I loved
brilliant.
all of the Kool and the Gang. That's how I got introduced to Kool and the Gang. What a band. Absolutely love those guys. Um, and it just kind of started a fascination with genres. I mean, film soundtracks are so varied as well. Um, and video games, I won't lie, I got into like Guitar Hero and stuff like that,
Okay,
and on all these, and Kerrang. I remember I started to watch Kerrang a lot, and it was all these little things that kind of like pushed me towards this identity, this personality, and fascination with like music and what I guess it would could easily be kind of described as like the alternative culture, I guess.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I and it was just kind of centered around people. The guitarists of these bands I thought were just super cool, um and I had a real fascination with the guitar pretty much immediately, after I kind of all of these things started to enclose on me. And honest, I asked my mum to if I could have a go, and my my uncle's brother. I don't even know who he's like. My uncle, I guess, kind of.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
he had a but he's called Joe, and Joe had a old. It's like an Encore black and white Strat,
Okay,
which was like just like a cheap brand, um, in a Strat shape guitar, and a tiny little crate practice amp, and he was like, "You can borrow these for a bit and see if you like it if you want." And I did, and here I am. I liked it a lot. I liked it so much. I based my entire life around. Uh, but that was it. It was just like an amalgamation of getting into loads of different
Yeah,
things. Just that right age, meeting really nice people who pushed me to these cool places and introduced me to this new sound, these new bands, and this like how they looked as well. They were all in tattoos and they're all dressed in black and they're all shredded, and it just blew my mind to think that people could like do this. Um, and that's how it started. That's how it's still going.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Do you remember the sort of, after the encore strat, were you kind of thinking, yeah, okay, I really need a real strat, or were you looking at other, do you remember the first guitar that you kind of saved up and bought?
I so after the Strat, yeah, it's a good question. I tried a Les Paul actually. I tried a Les Paul. It was like an Epiphone special, I think.
Hmm.
It was like an all black one. Um, and that didn't last that long, I remember. Just because I didn't I felt like the action at the time, I didn't really know what was going on, but it was things like the action was too high, just felt a little bit too oh no, I feel like I needed a bit more refinement almost. And that's when I traded that and I got myself an Ibanez.
Okay.
Um, and that was when I was like, oh, okay. I see. I see what the kind of vibe is. I got into Steve Vai. That was
Yeah. Oh, right.
a
Okay.
big push. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I got just an Ibanez, a really cheap Ibanez RG. It was like a white one with a pearloid pick guard. And I it had a Floyd Rose on. I had no idea what was going on. And these locking tuners, I was I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Um, and that was yeah, then that was a real interesting point because to that point I had only played guitars which are a relatively standard issue to be
Sure.
honest.
Sure.
If you know what I mean. The Ibanez was my first real kind of step up. And experience with like a floating trem and locking tuners, which are now standards for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first real kind of experience with that level up. And then after that, what I tried a few different things, and I think I really do enjoy just playing guitars, just do loads of different guitars. I don't know about you, but like just anything, I love it all. Um, and I tried a PRS.
Okay.
Um, it was a Paul Allender model based on it was like who's the guitarist from Cradle of Filth, um, which was pretty cool. It had some bat inlays, which I remember being very sick. It was like in
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
emerald green. It looked awesome, sounded good, but I didn't like the fact that it had like a plastic varnished neck,
Okay.
which um, I liked the natural wood. If it's or it felt like my hand was sticking too much. So I tried a few different things, and that eventually kind of pushed me into, well, funnily enough, it actually made me go back to the Strat. So it went, I kind of tried all these different things, and then I thought, you know what? I want to get a proper Strat. I want to actually try. And I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
they are as good. They've lasted as long as they are. I've still got it to this day. The Strat that I got when I was about 16, and I and that was it for me. Like it stuck. It was the guitar that I brought on tour with me with the band for years. It was my primary guitar up until I got my Charvel,
Okay.
uh, which was like everything I wanted. It's super Strat basically.
Yeah.
With it had the Goto hardware on, with the locking tuners at the back. And this great kind of bridge, which was somewhere between like a floating bridge, a fixed bridge. It was amazing. And again, I love my Charvel so much. Um, but from then on, I kind of knew what I wanted. It had everything. The
Sure.
Charvel has everything that I want. But I wanted to over the past year push the bar out even more. I wanted to get into. I've always been into drop tuning, and I've always been into extended range guitars, and I wanted to experiment more with that on the new stuff that we've been doing. So this past year and last year, I got in contact with Strandberg and and became a Strandberg artist and
Right.
started to play Strandberg, um, which I guess might seem on paper as a bit of like a crazy turn from Charvel to Strandberg, but it is it encapsulates. I feel like Strandberg encapsulates everything that I've always wanted to do, um, in terms of playability, tone, style. I like the fact that it's quite controversial in a way, being a headless instrument, a
Yeah,
headless
yeah,
guitar. Um, I think they're almost like pieces of art in of itself. But the ergonomics of it and how they can handle like everything I throw at it, combined with the fact that I play seven strings and six strings, the there's no question. I think it's like the best playing guitar I've ever played. It's inspiring how you can like pick it up and just do something that and it's hard to explain. Like it's just really, really magical. Like and I remember picking it up and being like, felt like I did when I first played like my Strat when I was 16, or the Ibanez when I was like 12 or something like that. It was one of those moments, and I thought, wow, I need to find out more. I need to
yeah,
play this
yeah.
more and see what happens, and then a whole record of the horror stuff was written on them. So it definitely worked for what I wanted to try and do, explore, find a new sound, and I love that because the tools, aren't they? At the end of the day, guitars are tools, and I'm really into like using them to push your boundary and try and inspire you to play differently or think
Sure.
differently.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
I love about the Strombergs. They make you, or they encourage you to try different things for sure.
And that's your go-to guitar now, is it? In terms
Yeah,
of
the Bergs are, yeah, the Strandbergs are. I have a six and a seven. They are the Bowden NX Progs. So they've both got yeah, like the floating systems on, um, and I mean the same model. They're the same model, just different color and one extra string and one less string. So, but they are amazing for sure. They are so handy, so so handy actually. Like the ergonomics, so that's a big part of the marketing, but you really don't appreciate it until I feel like play it for more than like 20 minutes or something like that. Like the more you play it, the more you discover. And that's what I found the inspiring thing about it, because
yeah,
it does
yeah.
encourage you to play, and it does encourage you to like try different things. The neck profile, for example, being the endure neck, which is more like these trapezoids put together as opposed to the rounded radius of
Okay.
a
Yeah,
standard neck. All of it just encourages you to try different things. And as much as I love my Strat and my Charvel Defender as a company, they it isn't as like they don't give you as much unbridled freedom, I think, as the Strandbergs.
right.
And as a creative, I think that's really important. Not just as a guitar player, which I absolutely am, and I am a humongous guitar nerd. But my mission in my adult life is more creative as opposed to um, what sounds cool as I just what it's that is obviously a big part of it, but
Sure.
it's definitely more of the creative element I'm
Uh,
interested in.
that's amazing. I really ought to ask you about pedals and stuff, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, of course. uh,
So what's on the floor?
yeah, dude. Well, quite to be honest with you, not my boards are relatively simple compared to what I've seen my peers and some friends build, but a lot of Black Country custom pedals, which
Okay.
is another Laney kind of twinned company.
Right.
But I have the A and B, so I've got my A and B pedal, which is essential for the dual rig. Then I've got a Ocean Verb, I think, like a kind of. Or is it? Yeah, no, that the see, I'm saying this like I should probably remember these. Um, yeah, they've got like an Ocean Verb, a digital delay, a noise gate, Sentry noise gate, which and then it's peppered, yeah, with just different kind of Black Country customs. So um, everything from distortion, overdrive, chorus. I do have an octave pedal. You're right for some of those single note riffs that do need some extra live bass for
Sure.
sure. Um, and I have and that's basic. That's the main. Yeah, then the tuner, of course. Yeah, and that's basically it. It's relatively standard, I would say. Um, but the Black Country custom stuff is awesome. The monolith distortion is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Um, I have tried various distortion pedals over my time. I like the MXR. I used up until the monolith, I used MXR badass super
Mm,
distortion pedal, which was really, really cool because I thought at the time it sounded great with the Mesa and Cornford combo. The MXR just gave it was a bit sludgy, but like it made it sound huge, just like the cut of the Cornford and the iconic sound of a Mesa, and then this MXR just kind of. And then the MXR just kind of like engulfed it all with this huge kind of fuzziness. Was really cool. But then when I went to Laney, I just felt like the MXR didn't really complement it as well.
right.
Um, and so when they were like, well, I kind of told them, I was like, yeah, I need some pedals and stuff. Like they were just, you should probably try the monoliths, and it made obvious sense because of the fact that it's the same company. So,
Absolutely.
and it does sound insane. Yeah, the options, the different voice options for your distortion are fantastic. There's a great like kind of classic saturated distortion. There's more of like a where it cuts out a lot of it basically and kind of reinforces the signal of the amp, so you get more of like a kind of clear,
Sure.
natural distortion from the amp, and then quite a modern one where it feels very airy, very open. I really like that setting as well. But so I found that the Black Country custom pedals are great to use both live and then in the studio because there is a lot of options with them. And so yeah, I'm definitely a big believer in um in those guys. And I'm yeah excited to see what they kind of do. They seem to be bringing out new products quite frequently. So every time that they do, I'm like, please send me one. This is really sick. It looks awesome. Please give me it.
It's interesting. I noticed when I was having a quick listen to some of your stuff that I think your guitar sound has got sort of heavier and bigger as time has gone on. Basically, I think from my ears there was a sort of point around 2020, or at least the
Yeah.
recordings that were released around then. Seems to go from sort of more rocky to sort of a thicker, sort of slightly more compressed metally type of sound. Does that coincide with the Laney coming on board and the rest of it?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely, man. Yeah, yeah. I joined Laney in yeah about 2021, I think, and up to that point, I think 2020 is when I started to experiment with the Mesa,
right.
and and then joined Laney in 21 around that time, and um, it was definitely like a natural thing, I think. But it was also a combination of a few different things, like the production getting better, um, me understanding more about recording, about me as a guitar player. Um, Also, just the direction of the band, like the sound, the
Sure,
sound of
sure.
the band, and which is funny for what you say because of all the stuff that's gonna be coming out very, very soon and in the future, with how all of that sounds. Yeah, it's very like the comment you made is absolutely appropriate because the where we've taken it now is definitely kind of like flagging the ground. Because for me, I wanted to cement a sound. So
Yeah,
it's always
yeah,
been
yeah,
important for me to try and find what that sound is. And just like with my guitars, trying to find what that perfect balance is. Um, to find that sound, these tools and trying to understand what it takes to get what I want
Yeah,
and be the guitar player I want to be. It took some time. It took some songs. It took some recording sessions, took
yeah,
some gigs, and I feel like now with the new stuff, yeah, it's definitely how the sound is. It is big, is basically the word. It's big because we felt like with the previous stuff, which I love dearly, but the guitar sound feel like it wasn't as big as it is live.
okay,
And we always pride ourselves on the live show. We think it's really good, and we all wanted the records to be a great reflection of what the live sound is, um, because we feel like that's where we're at our best. So this new stuff going forward was a big that was a big focus. The big goal was like listen to the song and then under hear where that would sit live in terms of the frequencies, the mix,
yeah,
how it makes you feel, um, and the tone, the style, yeah, just that having an identifiable style and tone was massive going forward. And so to build on what you said about more of a compressed metally sound, yeah, 100%. Um, we've gone bigger, we've gone bolder, we've gone angrier, uh, we've gone more aggressive. But then there's of course those pockets where it is softer and more somber and
yeah.
there's shade and dynamics. Um, but we've really tried to forge a sound with this, both in production and tonality as well. So I'll be excited to see what you think of the new stuff for
I'm
sure.
really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Actually, it's because I've been doing a bit of research, and like all bands, I guess you started. The first thing was probably self-produced, and then you brought in different producers like Brad Mayer, Paul Wally, and I think recently Jason Perry.
Yeah, we did the first album with Jason. Um, yeah, oh, what a guy, what a legend. Lots of funny stories. Uh,
Did that help you sort of form the guitar sound that you were looking for? Was it sort of a production-based thing, or was it just you bashing away, sort of in a room trying to find
yeah,
something?
well, I think a mix of different things. So Brad Mayer is our long-term producer slash friend slash he's just an amazing guy, and he helped do the first EP,
Okay,
and maybe the second and maybe the third. He's kind of always been with us in some way out of everything we've done, um, and that's why on the new stuff that we've just been doing, we wanted Brad, and then we also wanted Pete Hutchins, um, who has recently done like the Real Royal Blood record, the
okay,
last Skin Red record, and this last round of recording was a big step up. But from the lessons I've learned previous, so to kind of answer to bring that back round, up until working with I'd say Paul Wally, um, it was hard to get the uh, the guitar sound that I wanted because we did a lot of stuff just DI, basically,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
just digital, um, which I obviously nothing wrong with that, especially when you're trying to just get stuff out there, in the early years, and still to this day, like I said about this idea of digital modelers and software and plugins being a real big thing right now, and the quality is absolutely that's great. Um, but Brad's not a guitar player, so it's hard. It was hard to find that sound.
sure.
And then working with Paul Wally, he is a guitar player. So, and we recorded live tube amps there. By the time we started to work with Paul, and so I kind of started to understand a bit more of this, and the differences between digital and recording tubes, and the production around miking up a an amp to make it sound awesome, essentially, and kind of took those lessons with Jason into the Jason sessions. Um, but Jason again is really knowledgeable in terms of production and sounds, room sounds, and miking up again, just miking up. Um, and so it was really interesting and reamping as well, actually, that which I found to be an interesting thing. Uh, we reamped everything through, yeah, various little things and just to make a quite yeah, a thick sound
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, that was like my then. So the doing the survival mode album was my first proper kind of opportunity to really get into the nitty gritty of everything. But it was on this recent round of recording where I felt like all those lessons were culminated into what has been done, um, working with Brad and working with Pete, because Pete Hutchins is he's like an audio genius. He has this great space down in Herefordshire called Chapel Lane Studios, and me and the lads and Brad and Pete, we all just stayed in a tiny little residency, and we just knocked it out, just knocked out as much as we could, and it was there because he is a guitarist, like he's a
right,
fully fledged. I could have conversations with him and reference people and players and sounds and tones and eras and albums, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is sick. I love this. Really cool." And
yeah,
I could
yeah,
have a real conversation with him, and a lot as the only kind of string player in the band, I was working pretty intensely with him for quite a while every day, doing all the guitars, all the tones, all the bass. And so me and Pete worked really intensely together, and it was because of that kind of friendship and common understanding
sure.
that I think we managed to get the sound get the sound out that I feel like I've always kind of wanted, basically. Yeah, so I feel like now it's finally happened. It's finally happened. It took this time, but yeah, I'm really happy with how the sound is now.
Yeah, I'm not
And
surprised. It's brilliant. It's really exciting.
thanks, man. Cheers, dude. Yeah, super excited. Super excited.
Excellent, excellent. So what does the future hold, sort of immediately and sort of maybe in the slightly longer term?
So yeah, the future holds some pretty exciting stuff. We are announcing something pretty soon, and once that happens, we aren't gonna take our foot off the gas pedal. Um, New music, in essence, it's gonna be a lot of new music and a lot of new visuals, the new era, if you will. Um, Gigs, of course, we're planning some really cool live shows. But really, immediately, what we want to do is just start to get this new world, this new music out there into the open, and start building on that, because it's been a hot second since we've done anything, since we've released any music. Like April last year is when Survival Mode came out,
Okay.
and it is I I'm dying to get something out there, and I and it's all really really cool as well. So and I know a lot of people are waiting for it as well. So I'm just yeah, I'm like, come on, it's because we're this close, man. We're this close from something real juicy happening.
Okay, well,
And
I won't press you, but we'll definitely keep an eye out.
you should, yeah, I would heavily advise. I won't say too much, but um, yeah, we've planned, um like this is how professional we are. We've got a spreadsheet and we've got everything every day basically planned out up until yeah next year, like early next year,
Great.
of assets and everything that we've been doing for the past year and a bit, just making sure. So when we get to the campaign or when the campaign starts, it is just like this is what's happening and this is when it's going out and this is what's going out and it's just constantly. So yes, it's going to be really exciting. And it'll be a good time, a culmination of about a year and a bit's work, all 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 starting pretty soon.
Fantastic. Well, Zach, thanks so much for chatting this morning. It's been brilliant, and I'm much more better informed now about how a lone guitarist makes such a massive sound. So, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure to meet you and talk some gear and guitars
Absolutely.
anytime.
Uh, well, I wish you well. Thanks, Zach.
You, man. Thank you very much.